Welcome to the Fit Guide podcast. My name is Jack Thomas, and I'm joined today by Ivana Bruic, who is founder of Storm Cycling in Dubai. Now, Storm Cycling is one of our award-winning clubs, and they took home both of our highest awards, the Fit Guide 5-Star Award that covers the whole member experience from start to finish, and also the Fit Guide 5-Star Class Experience Award, which covers just the class experience. Storm was one of our highest scoring cycling experiences worldwide, so I'm really excited to learn from you today and to dig into your journey. But I just want to start off with what happened in your life, personally and professionally, that made you feel ready to launch Storm Cycling in 2020?
Firstly, Jack, I want to say thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you.
I do believe I'm the first interview today.
That's right.
So it's such a privilege, such an honor. Thank you very much. We started Storm Cycling in 2020, actually was launched, but 2019 was when the show for everything began. So it was a year dedicated of our lives, putting together everything from the branding to the concept, choosing the location, the negotiation of the location, how we're going to map things out. And of course, we did everything from scratch with Storm. So it took some time, took a good 8 months of like sleeping on the sofa, having to figure things out. You know how it is with the first business when you haven't actually launched it. Prior to Storm, I would say that all of this started from having a real passion for sport when I was younger. I was running track in Australia, 400 to 3,000. I ran with the Olympic torch in the Sydney Olympics 2020. It was a very proud moment for me, coming especially from a conservative family who didn't believe that sport was for women. We were a very conservative, religious family, and my parents believed in mathematics and physics and chemistry as after-school activities, whereas they allowed me to have a job. So I saved up for my first pair of track training shoes. And then I also had my own private tutorial that I paid for with my own track coach. And when they saw me running with the Olympic torch, I think they changed their perspective of things. But that's where my passion started for sports. I left it for many, many years. I had another business in distribution. And then being a first business, I made a lot of mistakes. I actually failed, and failure is a beautiful thing because you learn from that. And after that, I started to get back into sport as a means of, I guess, mental health, giving myself the time out of the day. And before I knew, I was auditioning for a new concept that was launched in Dubai, which are now my competitors. And we started another concept. It was the first rhythm riding. And then I saw a gap in the market in the local Emirati community. And that's why we are there, Storm Cycling.
Awesome. So you kicked off in 2020. It sounds like you had some background in rhythm cycling, so you're working for another studio.
Yes.
Talk us through the perfect journey at Storm from the member perspective. And maybe if you take us back to 2020, like how you kind of crafted that, maybe the things you saw, you said you saw a gap, maybe the things in the market that you wanted to fill with some different parts of the experience. So yeah, talk us through that.
Well, at my previous studio, I noticed there was a great number of women, especially Emirati ladies, and they were coming from the surrounding areas, so places like Al Qawanij, Sharjah, Mirdif. And so I started to inquire, how come you don't go and do any high intensity workouts in your area? They didn't have. So the girls were stuck in traffic, especially coming to the center of Dubai. And I thought, why not bridge out there and see what's going on? And I discovered beautiful communities. There was no competitors around us, which was one of the key elements when you're establishing a new brand. It's great not to have any competition around you. So this is why we decided to step out there. I had noticed the location probably about a year and a half before we had actually negotiated and taken it. And because I had a previous sort of background of rhythm riding, when I decided to make the shift, I had enticed a lot of excitement in the community. So they were waiting for that new location to be opened underneath my name or our name. And that's basically how we started. We decided sort of like an excitement campaign. So we created like all of the social media, but we kept it private. So if you wanted to be a part of that community, you would have to add us to get into the community. So we actually built a small network before we had launched. It was like a hidden private community. And I think it had gained like a 2,000 following, which is fantastic for something that hasn't launched yet. And the excitement started. So from the day of opening, everything was waitlisted. Where the class is waitlisted, we had a waitlist bench that was waitlisted. It sort of reminded me of one of those Boxing Day sales when you open the doors and people come in. You're like, nope, you're not on. Sorry, guys. You have to sit out there and just wait and all sign up properly. And there was a real big movement in the community because the girls hadn't been exposed to high intensity training. I say women a lot in what I do because as we moved into that area, we discovered that it's not really favorable for men and women to be training together just because of culturally sensitive reasons. So we established mixed classes and ladies only. And that's why we started moving in more of the women's section, because there was nothing out there for the ladies, and that became our strongest market in that particular location. Not across Storm as a brand. The next locations will definitely be mixed, but they say that you need to adapt your business, and this is a true example of adapting your business to what the people want.
Okay, interesting. So you got something for the boys coming up later on. Excited to hear that.
We
So
actually have we have
try
a
Storm when I
class
come
in
to Dubai.
Murder, but it's only a couple of times a week. But yes, there'll definitely be the next branch or two will be more mixed orientated, because it wasn't intended to be a ladies only, but in that area, yes.
Okay, great. So I can try Storm next time. That's the main thing. So we'll check
You
it
can
out
have
next
a
time in
private class
Dubai.
just for you and the team, no problem.
Awesome. Okay, excited for that. So, Ivana, I want to talk through present day. I want you to take me through the whole member experience from start to finish. And let's start with how people would typically find your studio. Let's say through the website or through Instagram, perhaps. And I actually want you to talk us through the whole member journey as they would experience it, let's say as a first timer coming to Storm.
Yeah. So as a first timer coming to Storm, I think again, I'm going to go back to our community, because you'll see in our classes, we don't have, when you go to a lot of studios, you'll see people taking pictures and sharing them. They have very, very open accounts. Again, we have a very conservative community. What we have grown on is viral marketing, verbal. All right. So word of mouth, word of mouth marketing. So people telling people, and this is actually how Storm has grown. We have great reviews on Google Review. We have people coming in, especially when they're traveling through, when they're looking for a cycling studio to attend. They actually come to tell us, you've gotten great reviews on Google, and we were interested to come and check out Storm. Of course, Instagram as well, website, but I think it's more socially orientated and also verbal with Storm. And now, of course, winning accolades like the one that we've been granted with Fit Guide, getting 5 stars, has been excellent marketing for us as well. So thank you so much for that. But I would just say it's through people's experiences themselves. And going back to the first time experience with Storm, when you book, we have the software that shows us that you're first time client. We reach out to our first time clients to let them know what to be bringing, how early to check in. Do they have anything medical that we should know about? The instructors are also informed before the clients arrive. We have SOPs that state that the instructors have to be there a certain set amount of time before the clients arrive. We cannot have our clients sitting in the room, for example, and the instructor just walking in and plugging in their laptop. Everything needs to be sound checked. The music needs to be checked. The first time list needs to be checked. So the people are welcomed through an introductory message. They're also obviously welcomed at the door. They're asked if they have anything medical going on. They're set aside. They're given a tour of the studio, the locker area, asked if they need anything. And of course, the thing with us, Jack, it doesn't matter if it's your first time or your 50th time. There's always someone to come and help you set up the bike. Because what I find is a lot of people are shy to ask. They'll get excited first time. They're like, I'm here. Yeah. And you'll be like talking to your friend. You don't know, you've had the bike set up for you. Then second time, third time, you stand there and you feel shy. At Storm, you don't need to worry about that. I ask them to raise their hand first time, second time, third time. Please don't be shy. The last thing I want is to be looking around the room, noticing that the clients are not set up properly because they're a little bit scared to ask for help again. But the first time is obviously very well taken care of, because I remember what it was like to be my first time. You know, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking to walk into a studio, especially high-intensity training with equipment. So we make sure that we take care of our first-timers in that way.
Yeah, even for me, like as someone experienced in the fitness industry, I feel super comfortable in a strength and conditioning studio. But take me to yoga, Pilates, or even cycling, and I am a little bit more wary. I'm a little bit more nervous, and it's nice, even for someone in the industry, to kind of have that little extra touch. So that's awesome. And what's really interesting there, Ivana, is that, you know, when I speak to 5-star award-winning clubs and our highest scoring clubs, it doesn't happen by accident. The member journey has been crafted from start to finish, and it sounds like you're really doing a lot of the things, like you literally talked through many of the standards that we evaluate, you know, such as reaching out to clients, instructor arriving there early, checking in with first timers. These are all standards in the Fit Guide. So it's great to hear that this isn't just a sort of fluke. This is meticulously planned. So let's go into the actual class and then post-class. How would you describe the perfect member experience there?
I think with the perfect member experience, it would be great to start on time. But also, I know that it's very strict with things like cutoff. We do have a couple of minutes in that the client can enter the classroom. And again, a lot of people get flustered if it's like, if they can't find parking or something is going on. You don't want to be that person I don't believe, and I know that I'm going to get backlash for it. You should close the door. But what you should do, unclip from your bike, walk up to the person, have an SOP where the front desk lets you know, right? Gives you a little wave or an indication. This person coming in has a medical condition. This person coming in is first time. Now, I'm giving away some things here. Maybe I should charge you guys for consultancy. No, and we are taught to train on and off the bike. There is nothing stopping you from unclipping, going up to that member, switching off your microphone so you don't make a kabobble in front of the whole class and they're embarrassed, and asking them, sit in your bike for 5 minutes. You need to finish your warm-up, then you can rise up with us. Let me know if you need anything. Raise your hand. You introduce yourself when you come into the classroom in front of the whole class. Doesn't matter how many people have been there before. You ask if there's anything medical. What I do is I generally go, we don't have to talk about it in front of class, guys. Just go like this really quickly so I can see you. I will come up to you just before we start and I'll switch off the mic. We have a quick chat. Or I will now know that I'm not pushing you in a certain way, but please stay with me after the class to discuss with me what medical condition you have. I don't ask if there's pregnancies in the class. Maybe that's from coming a very conservative community. Not everybody wants to share that. But I do remind them that if their first trimester of pregnancy, that they have to produce a medical note. And if they're here at their own, that word, their own risk if it's in the first trimester and they haven't told us. The lighting, the air conditioning needs to be on. You make sure that everybody has a set of weights, everybody has a towel, everybody has water, and you remind them, if you need more water, we're not cycling through the Sahara, just raise your hands, let me know and I'll fetch that for you. And if you are a good instructor, you will know how to leave the classroom jokingly and come back and nothing would have changed for that 2 seconds that you grab a water bottle. So that's the class experience going in. I also have taught the instructors and myself, obviously, to assess the room. We might have choreography, but what's the point of doing all of this fancy Macarena choreography if half the class cannot keep up with it? We are not there to put on a performance on the stage. We're there to be good coaches, good instructors. If the class cannot keep up with it, you have to tone it down. In fact, rhythm riding, you'll see it a lot on social media, all these fancy moves, and it looks competitive and dancey. But the real rhythm riding, when you are teaching it in a class, needs to be more about functionality, keeping your clients safe, and teaching them the proper technique so they can build the confidence to get up to a more advanced level, which you can perform a class in. But a normal day-to-day class, we don't do that at Storm.
Yeah, these things are fantastic. And again, it speaks so closely to what we look for when we visit the world's leading studios. So this is great that you've got these things in place. And again, it really shows that it is no accident you scored so well. Let's get into like the exciting stuff, like when the coach actually, gets all this stuff done, the first timers come in, they're warmly welcomed. What about when the actual class experience, let's say, starts? What's the little things that you teach your instructors to do to deliver that, incredible 5-star experience?
Obviously
amazing when you leave.
Yeah, the way that you speak to the clients, the words that you embed into them, the words that come out of our mouth are embedded into the person at a subconscious level, especially if they're repeat customers of your class. So obviously embedding words that are related to Storm, that's from a branding perspective. Guys, you're here to ride out the storms in your life. Whether you're having a difficult day or whether you just want to smash this workout, consider it the eye of the storm. The eye of the storm is actually the calmest part of the storm. So we're going to leave everything that's going on outside these 4 walls. You're going to put your phones down, switch off your watches. You don't need to be counting numbers in here. I can guarantee you're having a great workout. It's a tough one. Make sure that they're excited. You start with a story. You end with the story. 3/4 of the way through, we have what we call a soulful meditation. It's not a traditional, I would say, yogi talk or a yoga sort of delivery. It's sort of a mini TED talk. Again, you're speaking to the subconscious mind, because sometimes people, even us, I'm writing someone else's class and I'm like, hang on, the instructor is tapping in with me and this is what I do for a living. And it makes me reassess how I'm feeling. Sometimes we just need to hear a third person say, hey, you're doing okay and you're not alone. That's it. It's not about getting into a soppy meditation, or it's really, we need to hear it as human beings. There is so much more than a workout. I can go and burn calories at home. I have a bike here. But when you're part of the community vibe, the community feeling, you want to feel included. You want to connect with your coaches. You even want to connect with the other people in the audience, right? So we make sure that we have storytelling from the beginning to the end. We keep an eye on them. We ask them how they're doing. We ignite passion from them. We have a line at Storm that goes, woohoo, and there's a sign. So if the classroom goes a little bit quiet, I hold up the sign, and it makes them smile. It brings the energy out in the clients. So I would say that the tone of voice is super important. The way that you display things, your body language is super important. Your assessing your environmental assessment. Does someone look like they're not feeling that well? Remind them that they can put their head down on the bike. They don't need to raise their hand if they're shy about it. We go in and we check them. We have to be vigilant. We teach on the bike. We teach off the bike for a reason. Not because we're being lazy or we're not fit, but because it's important to engage with your audience. You need to know the balance between stepping in, up in their faces, and stepping that back, allowing them to breathe. Some people don't want to be on the beat.
No, I really love all of this because you haven't talked about, the music and the programming and the pace, which I think is fantastic because that's really not what the vast majority of people are looking for. And there's other cycling concepts that really just focus purely on that, right? We burn the most calories or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But actually, people typically don't go to studios like Storm or Soul Cycling or similar ones for the program really, or to burn calories. It really is so much more than that. So I'm really glad that you've focused on that particular area. And again, it speaks so closely to what we look for at the Fit Guide. So I think to get people that can deliver this well requires a certain type of person. And I do want to dig into that, but I want to finish this part of the interview, if you will, on the post class. So what happens after the class before we go into the recruitment side?
After class, we go to the front desk, and it's really important to give those clients a high five, especially first timers. How was your class? How are you feeling? A lot of them be like, and you remind them, anything that we try for the first time is difficult in life. Even when an instructor goes on vacation, I went once for 5 weeks. I came back. I wasn't able to walk down the stairs the next day. My calf muscles were on fire. Absolutely normal to be feeling like that. You give them some tips on recovery, Epsom salts, electrolytes, eat a good meal, replenish your body. And give them the high five, get that little goodbye at the door. It makes a world of a difference to engage with your clients.
Love it. So how do you recruit the people that can deliver this? Because it isn't easy to deliver this in the way that really has people feeling good, warm, special. So how do you find those people and bring them into Storm?
So Jack, when we first started Storm as a concept, we had a little mood board, 5 studios in 5 years. Doesn't actually quite work out like that. And one of the reasons that you realize along the way that's super important is it's about quality over quantity. It's better to have less and do it really, really well rather than to grow too quickly. I've learned also from experience that once I hired a lot in one go, it didn't work out. It's very difficult to ingrain a company culture unless you do it in small pieces. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So basically when we recruit, I don't actually care if you have ample experience, whether you have all these PT qualifications through this, whether you've come from here, come from there. What I look for first and foremost is your communication skills with me. And then I look whether you have an interest in the brand. I'm not interested in signing someone up and training them because I have a dream of becoming a cycling instructor. The minute that you say that to me, I'm off it. And I'll tell you why. I have a dream of training people who want to be a part of the Storm brand, who embody what Storm embodies. I ask them, why do you want to teach? What is the sense of purpose that you'd like to give back to the community? What is it about Storm that you want to be a part of? It's not that I want to take from people. I want to help them grow. That stages that Storm don't cover our instructors. We love to highlight them. In fact, I love to stand behind them because I want them to be the face of the brand. But a lot of the times you'll see people passing through and you've seen them maybe once, then they'll reach out over Instagram. I want to become a coach. Can you train me? Or I want to come to the audition. I've never seen you in my classroom. I've not seen you in the studio. So I know that you'd love to become a coach, but I want you to want to become a part of the brand. This is what I look for. Even in my operations staff, you'll see my operations staff, my receptionists, they cycle in the classes. They get up, they create content. It's really important to me that we are a team, that we're working together and, envisioning Storm for the bigger picture. It's not about getting a new cycling instructor or a great receptionist. I want people who embody the brand. That's what I look for, actually, before I even give you an audition or an interview.
And when everyone on the team buys into that and believes in what you do get these experiences happening much more seamlessly, much more consistently. But of course, the next challenge is doing that at scale, which could be a little bit harder. But you've obviously nailed it, your Murdiff location. I want to go into systems. Like, how do you, obviously getting the right people is super important, but having systems is, again, if you're going to do this at scale, especially, also
Yeah.
super important. So you get these great people, you put them in, they believe in the brand, they believe in Storm. How do you really equip them for everything they need to do to deliver these experiences consistently?
Yes. So I had prior experience, which was fantastic. I would always say to anyone, if you're wishing to open up a business, get yourself a mentor. Don't be shy about that. Don't think, oh, I can do it myself. Yeah, you can, but you're going to make mistakes like I did in my first business. I was lucky enough to have come from a previous studio and actually helped build that brand. So I worked with that team. I saw what went wrong, what didn't go wrong, what we could have done better, what software we were using, what software we weren't using, what the clients wanted, how the parking went, what shoes were working, what equipment was working. Was the soundproofing good? How can I fix it for the next studio? So I came in with a little bit of IP from previous experience purely.
Exactly the same for me. Yeah, I went through that
Yeah,
same journey, working at another club and kind of thinking, oh, that was great. Let's do
yeah,
something like that. And yeah, it didn't work quite so
exactly.
well. How can I make sure that doesn't happen at
Yeah.
base? For sure. So I
We're
can relate.
lucky that we came from that
Yeah.
experience, you know, and
Yeah.
how do I say this positively? But it was the expense of someone else. So we're really lucky. We didn't have to bear the mistakes, right?
Yeah.
We learned from other people's mistakes because we're amongst it. So this is what I came in. But to be honest with you, Jack, the rest of it has been fine tuning. It's
Yeah.
literally been fine tuning. And also remember, I came from Emirates when I first came to the UAE 20 years ago. Emirates have meticulous hospitality standards. Like everything about Emirates is meticulous when it comes to hospitality. They have one of the most meticulous hospitality standing training programs in the world. So without like plugging them, they're a great company. They teach you everything, how to be on time, to have presentation. So I came from like a little bit of a military background there, and I'm very, very strict with these sort of standards. Also being an athlete when I was younger, there is discipline involved. There's showing up on time. There's writing out your own pains, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. It doesn't matter what's going on through your life. You need to be there with a smile on your face. I've embedded this sort of culture into the team. I'm a nice coach, but the brand needs to be looked after. You know, we come in with a smile on our faces. You know, on the days that we don't come in. It's okay. I understand. We don't come in on those days, but we come in. The people are coming for an experience. So the SOPs that we have at Storm have been molded over the 5 years. I once remember looking at an Instagram story of another studio, and I saw that the staff had left their flip-flops next to the stage. At Storm, you're not even allowed to have a plastic bottle on the stage because it doesn't embody sustainability or the fact that we're in a sustainable building, actually. And this is really important to us. So all of these little details, they count. Even the scent of Storm, we switch it off for a certain amount of minutes of the day so it's not overpowering for the clients.
Wow. It's really these attention to details that really add up to make this incredible experience. And that's what we talk about at the Fit Guide. We have 250 standards that we look at. Look, if you miss one or two, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, when you get the majority of these, it equates to this great experience and this great feeling. And it's not about sort of box ticking. It has to be done with authenticity. But actually, it's a combination of these seemingly small things that add up to a great experience. And that's certainly, by the sounds of it, what you've done at Storm. Now, I want to dig more into Emirates. But before that, Ivana, how do you lead your team? I think you've sort of alluded to it a little bit. But how do you lead them? How do you inspire them personally?
I lead by example. I don't give them a set of rules that are different from my own. If I mess up, I pay for the same consequences as they do. I lead by example. I roll my sleeves up. I fill in when I have to. I think one of my front desk reception operation ladies, a couple of years ago, she went on maternity leave. So I covered the front desk. I covered her classes and my classes, and anyone else who was on leave. I lead by example. You cannot tear yourself away from your business. You have to roll up your sleeves sometimes. And if the cleaner is sick or someone's not feeling well, you have to clean the bikes. It's about being there. You can't think that you're going to have this brand and you're going to build this company culture by going, right, guys, I've invested that in it. I've shown you what to do. Bye now. I'm going on vacation. It doesn't work like that in a business, not in our business, because our business is about heart and soul. The community, they want to see your face. The staff, they want to be seen by you. They want to go, hey, Ivana, look what I'm doing. And you want to be there and go, yeah, this is great. How can we work on together on the next campaign or the next social media post? They want to feel like you're amongst them. I don't believe that I'm up here as a boss. I'm still here, and I will be here until the end with them, riding alongside them. So I think this is really important. And I think as owners of studios or as people who establish brands or even bringing franchises, you can't just leave your brand. You have to be present. It's really important. Otherwise, you won't be able to grow that company culture
I love
because
it.
you're not
Yeah.
leading by example.
Leading by example is huge, I think. Little things like if you want the team to welcome people in a certain way, when you welcome people, if you do it in a certain way, it
Yes.
really does inspire and trickle down to the rest of the team. So I can certainly, yeah, see that. And as myself, as a sort of leader and a gym owner as well. You mentioned Emirates and what you learned there, and you use a word which is, key really to what we do, close to our hearts, which is hospitality, right? So
Yes.
you talked about Emirates. Maybe you can dig a bit more into that, maybe some of the little things that they did to make the flights great. I actually just took an Emirates flight last week, and it certainly is
Yeah.
one of the best airlines in terms of hospitality. And then perhaps Emirates or really any other industries that you look to for
Yes.
inspiration in the experience area.
Yeah. Well, just to touch on hospitality, it was my only real hospitality experience, but I came to Emirates when I was very young. I was 21 years old. And it was like a military pickup, drop off, down to the shade of your lipstick, the shade of your,
Wow.
down to the way your hair was pinned, the way that you presented yourself with clients or customers, the way that you turned the logo around to face the clients. So the branding had to be perfect. Everything was super meticulous. And I think this was like a mini military training for just showing up and delivering a 5-star customer service. It was a very, very long time ago. I think since Emirates, I'd finished my degree actually while I was flying. That was my agreement with my parents, my very conservative parents, that I could go off. They didn't agree to me being away for 20 years or so, but that's fine. And then I got into the advertising industry. I was producing copy for ads. I had copy produced for Bloomingdale's. I was writing copy for them, radio copy, Red Bull, Burger
Wow.
King. We had a real estate agency I was writing copy for. And then after that, I got into establishing my own distribution company, bringing in brands from Australia. So I had a sort of all-around sort of experience with business, hospitality, dealing with people, maybe producing sort of campaigns, writing the copy for campaigns. So I do a lot of the copy for Storm, a lot of the social media direction, and yeah.
In terms of being a customer, do you get any
Yeah.
inspiration from other industries? Is there anywhere else, any other businesses that you admire or visit or go to where you're like, oh, wow, I like how they do that. Maybe we can kind of recreate
Can I
that
be
in some way
honest,
at Storm.
Jack?
Please.
This came from my mum. Hospitality is huge. Like in my house, if you come to our home, or the way that we went to other people's homes was super important when I was young. Presentation, the way that you spoke, the way that you said please, thank you, being appreciative for things. This was super, super important. So I think from an early age, even traditionally, I was embedded to be a certain way when it came to hospitality. Saying thank you to people for coming to your home, giving them gifts. So I would say, apart from Emirates, I don't really have any further experience in hospitality. It's just something that's naturally embedded into me.
That's fantastic. And I think it's such a great way to frame it. We've talked about this in some of our presentations that we've done. Think about how you treat someone when they come to your home. And often when they leave, they're like, oh, thank you for your hospitality. I had a great evening this evening. You show them around, you show them where the bathroom is, you make sure they feel good, you bring them a drink, you do all of these things. And it's such a great way to frame it. And I think if we can capture some of this magic and this essence in our businesses, we really are on the right track. Ivana, can you tell me about a dark or difficult time in your entrepreneurial journey and how you overcame it?
Well, there's actually a lot, if I'm to be completely transparently honest with you, but a lot of them I cannot be sharing.
Sure, maybe just one that sticks out that you can share.
Interpersonal or internal, but we're good. I would say I was seated at Batillo Cafe and I got a message. I actually got a few messages on my phone saying, congratulations for winning the 5 stars on Fit Guide. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't realize, but I would tell you something, Jack, that time came at the perfect time, because prior to that moment, I'd actually negotiated a location. I'd actually negotiated 8 locations for Storm over 5 years to expand. But for whatever reason, at the last second or the last moment, we didn't feel good about it. So we pulled back. And sometimes I was a little disappointed because some of the negotiations went on for 2, 3 months. And other times in hindsight, I realized it was for the best. It wasn't fitting the box. So obviously there's three of us partners. We all need to agree on that. And for whatever reason, someone would be like, no, at the end, this is not for us. At the time that I'd found out that we had 5 stars for Fit Guide, I'd actually been in the biggest slump. I had gained weight. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I was really in an entrepreneurial slump because I had worked on a negotiation for 13 months. We had gotten that location. It was the location of my dreams. I was so happy. I was celebrating. And then I think it was 3.5 weeks into having the architectural works, everything drawn up, done.
Oh, wow.
The developer actually, I won't say the name obviously here because the developer actually pulled out and said, sorry, we're going to give it to someone else. This is something that I had dedicated over a year of my life to. I mean, like, negotiating meant back and forward, meant visiting their office, meant sometimes weeks between replies, meant strategizing the next reply. I was finishing my negotiating in mastery at Harvard as well. And like having this, like trying to gain knowledge even from a scholarly level on how to apply it to my next negotiations. I was so happy to have scored this negotiation. And then the thing was taken. They were like, I was in disbelief when I first got the email. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, we're sorry, but we're going to give it to someone else. I'm like, but we have a signed contract. And of course it gets a lot more technical. So you can either choose to dwell on that and let it eat you alive, because it can, because it's over a year of your life. And it's something that you really, or you can choose to try to pick yourself up and move along. And I think at that point, it was a few weeks after I had gained this knowledge that we had gotten this news. And I just remember thinking, I always feel like I have angels watching over me. And I felt like the universe said to me, that's your little nudge. Just keep going, pick yourself up. You guys are doing great. Just keep moving forward. At that point in time, I'm going to thank you here because I really needed that. I mean, that was the point that I was probably at one of the lowest.
Wow. I mean, honestly, I've got goosebumps listening to that on many levels, really. I mean, one is, I think it's really important to talk about these things. And so thank you for sharing that so honestly and openly, because, you've had 5 years, they've been good years. You're obviously doing something special. You have plans for growth. So these are all fantastic things that should be celebrated. But I think it is important to talk about these difficult moments and these difficult times because they can be incredibly overwhelming. And then on another level, I'm just so happy that it, has had a positive effect on you getting our message. And
it was amazing.
And it really is earned as well. Obviously we are fairly new. We've only been around for a few years, so not everybody knows what it means to get a 5-star award or our other award, the Award of Excellence. But 5 stars really is our highest award. It is based on a completely anonymous visit, and it really means you are one of the best of the best. What we're saying now is it represents the top 1% of the industry, because we only choose the top 10 to 20% that we visit, and then it's only 3 to 4% of those visits that actually get the 5-star award. So it really means you are the best of the best. So you don't really need to thank us, because we just took it through an objective, anonymous process, which is the same process that every other studio's gone through. But at the same time, I'm really happy to hear that sort of had a positive effect, and as you said, kind of gave you that little nudge that you needed to kind of go to that next stage. That's awesome. Happy to hear that. What is your proudest achievement in your, let's say, in your Storm cycling sort of career or lifetime?
Oh my gosh, there's been a couple, but I think I'll tell you the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur. When you've sort of gotten there, you're like, cool, how do we keep growing? So I don't think you ever have that super big buzz. Of course, in hindsight, I am often told, can you just slow down and see what you've done? And I'm like, it's fantastic. But then I'm always hungry for that growth. So I think some of the proudest achievements in 2018, I had won Fitness Instructor of the Year in Middle East. And that was really, really amazing, because I sort of had this imposter syndrome before that. It's a weird sense, like, am I really like giving something back to the community? What is it? So that was really, really amazing. Then I'd say some of my other proudest achievements were obviously making it through COVID with a baby brand, getting through that, training the first Emirati cycling instructor. So Latifa, one of our coaches, she's our OGs. She's actually the first ever Emirati women cycling instructor in history. So, and it was a big movement for the community. It actually inspired a lot of women to become coaches and instructors, because I think service roles traditionally are like you become a doctor or an engineer in the family. So Latifa is someone that you will not see. She's completely private, but she's also someone whose class you go to and they're fully packed out. which shows the importance of building those bonds with the community. It's not just on social media. Other proudest moments, getting 5 stars Fit Guide in a pretty private community. So thank you. And also, like, now we're at the stages of growth that we're ready for. So I'm proud that we're at that stage. So keep your eyes peeled over the next couple of years, because we do plan our expansion.
That's awesome. And actually, the first one you said, getting Instructor of the Year in 2018, I think actually links really well to our very first question. You know, what happened personally, professionally to make you feel ready? Because often we need to, and this is the journey I went through as well, kind of earn our stripes in those roles before we actually start a studio and start a gym.
Yes.
You know, which, you know, you said you sort of helped build the SOPs, so that obviously prepared you for your next role. You know, obviously you had some kind of managerial role there, and getting Instructor of the Year shows that you really earned your stripes in the instructor role. So I really think it's important that we do that and we kind of build our way up to opening a studio. And that really allows us to do something great. Now, Ivana, we're going to finish up with a bit of a quick fire round. So around about 1 minute on each answer, or maybe even a sentence if you can. So I'm going to start off with, what one piece of advice would you give to someone wanting to create something special and impactful in the fitness industry that you haven't had a chance to talk about today?
I would say definitely do your research. All right. If you're referring to opening up a studio, I would do what I did: gain your knowledge in other areas, work, study, go and travel around to different studios, see how they're doing it, observe the things that you do and you don't like, because you need to learn from other people's experiences and also yours before you invest in establishing something like a brand. That's a really important piece of advice. It can't come out of nowhere. You've got to learn from the experiences.
Awesome. Love it. What's a small detail in your gym experience, in the fitness experience at Storm Cycling, that most people overlook, but really makes a big difference that you haven't had a chance to say today?
It sounds so silly, but I think it's cleanliness. You would be surprised that, yes, you will see with a lot of our reviews, they actually mention the word cleanliness. Everything needs to be super, super smelling nice, clean, fresh towels. Even the dry cleaner that you take the towels to is super important. I know it sounds so weird but it's really, really important. And a lot of our clients, we travel here or there and we come back and Storm's the cleanest, we've noticed. I'm like, thanks. We actually detail clean the bikes, just so you know.
I love it.
And we actually detail clean the shoes. So they're sent away for cleaning and restoration, and they come back as well in an interval. So cleanliness is important.
And of course, we do look at that through our process as well. You know, cleanliness in all areas, right? Showers, bathrooms, front desk, also the studio as well. And ladies and gents, that is attention to detail, right? Choosing the right cleaning company to make it smell a certain way. And you've alluded to the scent in what you do there as well, which again is really going that extra mile. And we do have a standard around sensory elements as well, which not many studios score. So, and you did. So, you know, excellent to hear that. How important is a strong community, and how just a couple of things that you do to help foster that community vibe?
Your community is everything. Like, your community is everything. You know, people can become so baffled because they'll go onto Instagram and they'll see things going on around the world and it looks so amazing, but you have to ask yourself, what is actually happening behind closed doors? You know, are the classes filling? How are the customers satisfied? How are you able to attract them? What connection do you have? Community is important. Even if you see in a couple of the last few reels that we've done with Storm, we completely involve our community. Interviews with them, challenges. You'll see our community are talking to one another underneath in the comment section. Your community is everything. Without community, we don't have a brand. You just have something that looks pretty on social media. Because again, anyone can fill a class to take a video, right? But how is your engagement and your interaction day to day with your community? This is important. They want to feel seen and heard. It's really, really important to them to feel like they're a part of something. Otherwise, they can just train at home or in a big commercial gym and not be seen. They'll still be burning calories, right? That's why community is important.
Yeah, I love it. And I love how also you've really made an effort to connect with the local Emirati community as well. That's really awesome. And I think important, even though it's what I believe 80% expat in Dubai. I really love how you've done that as well.
It's very niche. Yeah.
Finally, Ivana, if you could embed one key principle into the DNA of every club and experience, what would it be? Or another way to frame it, I guess, is what's one little thing that you really wish every gym studio would do worldwide?
They need to really, really work on company culture. Because when you have a great standard or a strong company culture, that transcends into the happiness of your employees, which ultimately transcends into the happiness of your community. Company culture is everything. Not only do your audience want to be seen and heard, so do your staff. And that's why it's really, really important to be working on the same level with them, especially as you're growing. Of course, my goal one day is to become like Barry from Barry's Boot Camp. I sort of like, I like the fact that I don't even know what Barry looks like, right? But he's created a strong culture. Like when you go to Barry's, it's like one language speaks along everybody. You know, the way that they open the doors, to the energy in the rooms, to the music, to the way that they engage with you at the front desk. This is what I want for Storm. But this is not going to happen for like at least 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm very, very honest with that. Company culture. Forget everything else. Don't think that you can put things into play and they're just going to work by themselves. No, they're not. Company culture is everything, because as long as your staff are happy and they feel your company culture and you're embedding the language, your clients will also feel that. And it's authenticity, right? You're not putting it on. You're not being fake. It's really there. It's like what you said about SOPs. You can either read them on a checklist or they can become a part of you, the way that you run your class. Company culture, hands down. People need to really pay attention to it.
Yeah, I love it. And when we look to expand and sort of build these great brands that people recognize worldwide, I think we can look to industry leaders like Barry's. Obviously, they've done fantastic things over decades, not years. And I think, you know, we can learn a lot from those kind of brands. Ivana, I've really enjoyed this chat. It's been absolutely fantastic. Really, thank you for taking the time. Finally, if anyone wants to reach out and connect with you personally, have a chat, find out more about Storm, what's the best way to contact you?
I guess you can either contact me on Storm's Instagram, Storm Cycling, or my personal Instagram, Ivana_Bruic_. I'm always active with answering people. I think it's important to answer your DMs, especially clients. So I'm always active on there. So if you want to reach out and ask me for any advice personally, I will answer. I'm more than happy to share knowledge.
That's awesome. Well, it's a fantastic story. You've done so well in the 5 years you've been running. Yeah, really proud of you and the team for scoring so well in the Fit Guide. And to dig into your journey today really has been delightful. So really, thank you for sharing. That's it for today. Thank you, Ivana, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.